Okay, it's Mike. I have, as I usually do in these readings on YouTube, recordings, the readings. Um, a lot of times I don't finish books because I don't like the direction they're going, um, or I don't agree with it. So I don't necessarily read it on or record it and put it online. But we'll try this one now. This is from Gregory L. Little. Um, People of the Web. What Indian mounds, ancient rituals, and stone circles tell us about modern UFO abduction, apparitions, and near death experience. Always good read. I heard good things about it. Let's see where we got the part I can't see. You get a bit of an introduction here. This is something that says about a fascinating book, Ancient Modern Phenomena. Are UFO abductions real? Why are ancient sacred sites aligned to stars? What were the purpose of Stonehenge and stone circles? Why were huge earthen mounds erected in North America thousands of years ago? What were the purposes of ancient rituals? What is the real medicine wheel ceremony? What are apparitions of the Blessed Mother Virgin? What is the near-death experience? What are the magnetic net that encircles our planet? How are spiritual and mystical experiences caused by brain chemistry? What do rituals really accomplish? Does a spiritual world really exist? It says this, quotes, the people of the web take us literally beyond ourselves into a dimension of thought, a dimension of time and space that is on the theoretical fringes of parapsychology and quantum physics. Are you prepared to embark on what may be one of the greatest intellectual adventures of your life? Brent Rains, editor of UFO Perceptions. And then it says, perhaps Greg Little's People of the Web will ignite some spark that will burst into flames and become a Rosetta Stone that at last can provide a reliable tool for understanding the hidden past and move men closer, even closer to the light and understanding again the wheel turns. For this is the heart of People of the Web. And this is Berthold E. Schwartz, MD, author of UFO Dynamics. Now, mind you, this book is 30 years old, at least. Or just the publishing date on this book. It was 1990. So mind you, it's a little bit outdated, but it's not so outdated. What may be the case is that we're outdated. Many of us are in this field are outdated. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that we are maybe following the wrong people, following the wrong leads, as far as understanding what the heck we experienced when we had our Bigfoot encounters, our UFO encounters and sightings, Bigfoot encounter sightings, and etc. And more other and all the other strangeness. So there's 12 chapters, and the introduction, forward. I don't want to read the forward for that much. Introduction by Berthold E. Schwartz, MD. Although you might wish to travel to the four corners of the earth and to voyage far into space and deep under the sea, frequently the most intriguing and exciting challenges can be found in your own backyard. This is so true. That's what I'm just finding out. That's what I'm sharing with people right now. And a charming and graceful style. Greg Little has compiled a compendium of mostly Native American happenings, circumstances, and inexplainable experiences from the distant past, current times, and sometimes he takes the reader on wondrous trips to visit places, people, and events that have future portents. In the true tradition of Charles Fort, People of the Web touches upon many outstanding and well-known mysteries of our world, and also brings forcibly to the reader's attention intriguing accounts of lesser-known and totally overlooked phenomena. The present-day struggles between the free world and tyrannies of the now collapsing communist state. This, of course, 30 years ago. The competing rivalries of various technologies and inventions are brought into clearer perspective by study of various accounts and mythologies of man's origin and the influences and interactions with the environment and the cosmos. From the bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River, where Hernando de Soto met his untimely end in 447 years ago to the current. So it's got to be at least, got to add another, it's at least 477, and probably more than that at this point. Let's see, 480 years ago now, almost. Anyways, because this year is 2023, right? Everybody knows that who hears this. So this at this time of the reading. Anyways, nearby canceled archaeological dig and a sacred mound. Dr. Little tells about his friend White Eagle and White Eagle's grandfather Red Hat, and how their timely intervention ceremonies and oral histories saved the day. Beyond the mere listening of these personal regional events, Dr. Little, as he develops his theme and relates them to possibly parallel experiences of our own times, eschewing dogmatism and daring to stretch other disparate and on the surface unconnected episodes. He ranges from the experiences of regression hypnosis of a UFO experient to critical discussions and alternative explanations for popular UFO abduction reports by Bud Hopkins and Whitley Strieber. These matters are interfaced with the claimed experiences of a personal UFO abduction by the eminent psychologist, UFOologist R. Leo Sprinkle. Various viewpoints, including those of ufologist Jacques Vallée, are examined and expanded upon. The monumental works of John A. Keel, and in particular his Mothman case in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, whet the imagination and strains the sinews of credulity. Yet we are confronted with the ample documentation involving people from all walks of life and government officials. These situations are not isolated, for there are the related and unexplained instances of the Jersey Devil, a Rio Grande Valley creature, apparitional phenomena on the archaeological sites 1,000 years old? How do the rituals and ceremonies of the past tie in with mankind's unconscious, his com- complexes, archetypes, and psychopathology? So, psychopathology. What might the role of psychic phenomena be? What is the evidence? We are given verbal snapshots of uh, uh, Choctawian Birdman. Did I say that right? Choctaw. Choctaw. I'm going to try to say this again. Choctawian. I think I said Choctawian Birdman. A rectangular sandstone tablet, carbon dated to 1310 AD. Okay, that probably is more realistically the date. That was found several years ago during excavations of Monk's Mound, the largest earthen mound in North America. To me, it is almost as interesting a fact that for the most part, the establishment has had an iron curtain of resistance and relative reluctance to explore and study that which is often under their own noses. Perhaps there are psychodynamic clues for their resistance other than the natural scientific conservatism and need for caution in evaluating any new factual data, let alone claims and interpretations. Yet these and similar facts, as reported again and again in this provocative, profusely illustrated volume, beg for scrutiny and scholarly attention from a new Charles Fort or Hendrik Schliemann. The giant stone and earth mounds, the tiny artifacts and talismans from the past are with us and are still being discovered, as reported in the popular press and in a handful of scholarly Fortean journals, such as the late Ivan T. Sanderson's Pursuit Info and the excellent English publication Fortean Times. How are these many silent monuments and artifacts related to the ancient myths and traditions? How do various concepts, written and oral opinions, effigies, symbols relate to current day occasional explosions of paranormal and Fortean events? And I truly believe that a lot of what's going on has a lot to do with our ancient past and our ancestors and ancestral spirits. We just think it's all just nonsense. What's going on, Craig? Let's see what's going on here. Telekinesis and the influence of mind over matter. Yeah, Craig is trying desperately to send me some clothes. I really appreciate him willing to do that. He didn't have to do that. I wasn't asking for it, but it's awfully nice of him. There's another thing too I was thinking about. In ancient culture in the past, and it was like a revelation that came to me today. And you go, well, where did I find that in a book? Doesn't really matter. From my experience and everything else that's going on, it is clear to me that one of the things that's going on is that one of many cultures back then, they adopted trees. An individual would adopt a tree in which they would communicate with. They would commit the ceremonies around. They would adorn. They would recognize, and they would do such things as branch twisting and tree bends and all sorts of things. And, to mark the place and how to get to that place and all that kind of stuff, right? And I really think what's going on, and I really mean this, that what a lot was going on are poltergeist spirits um, of the past, ancestors, our ancestors. Whether you're, call yourself an indigenous person, or you're someone like me who's a half breed, or Heinz 57, or whatever you may be, and it didn't have to be just North America. I believe they did this all over the place. For some reason, we've just been forcibly. This information has been deliberately squashed. It's coming back to life, and we're going to let it come back to life again. What does that mean? People talk about grounding yourself to a tree and spending time with a tree, being there around the tree barefoot. That it has at times can have healing properties. Are these things all just demonic? I mean, just because they're strange looking and they're bizarre looking and they look like something that came from a children's tale, are they? Are they demonic? How do we know that? We don't know that. That's what it comes down to. And, this is our ancestors calling us back. Are they trying to explain things to us about what really goes on? Is that part of the reason why that Modernia is coming to a grinding entropic halt before our eyes? What I mean by that is, no, things will still continue. New things, technologies. What I say by that is basically new variants is what we already have will continue, right? But, we become more and more disconnected from this creation to the point that we will be so fragmented and so lost. We'll be disconnected from the creator, the creation, and even each other. And something wants that to be. I wonder why that is. And who is that something or things? Not much talk about that when it comes in our modern day Christian background, authorities, right? Anyways, I notice I get a few people that sub and then they leave and sub, and it's amazing how many people drop off. I guess there's a lot of people that just can't handle the truth. They think they have the truth, but they can't handle the fact they don't have the truth. It was one of the hardest things in my life. I'm 55 years old. I was around 50. Well, it's about 45 and leading into my 50 year of age. And by the time I was 50, I realized everything that I was taught from the television, from public school system, from college and university, from most of the things on television, well, I say that right, and everything else was pretty much wrong. Pretty much. There might be a nugget of truth in it, but it pretty much was so distorted it was worthless information. Truly it is. But I don't think this is. I think that where we come to terms with the trees. Who are the trees? Many hinted messages in all places fiction. Couldn't speak out loud about it. It's got many consequences of speaking truth. Believe you me. Anyways, as telekinesis or the influence of mind over matter raises questions about the frequency, form, and possible meaning of these events in everyday life, I wonder how these factors might, or a wider scale, influence all of us. Similarly, curiosity might be turned to sporadic outcroppings of spectacular cases like Dr. Little's account of the Hopkinsville, Kentucky UFO creatures associated with the harassment of a farm family in 1955 and which received wide attention. And this example, synchronicity and coincidence, or in brackets, or quotes I should say, coincidence, if they are not in some way related, also raised the question of the paranormal, since Hopkinsville was also the birthplace of the psychic seer Edgar Casey. My personal interest in Hopkinsville case was thrusted upon me during a prolonged study of Jacques Romano, the telepathist, who, amongst his many feats and accomplishments in his near century of life, also was the one who, although not widely known, was helpful in starting Edgar Casey on his career. Sherman, 1976. Furthermore, via personal synchronicities, one of my first patients in my practice in New Jersey came from Hopkinsville, where she was a minor public official at the time of the strange encounters. As if to joggle my memory, I also recall how Dr. J. Allen Hynek once told me that the Hopkinsville case was, quote, on the level, unquote, as he had learned from the former student employee, from a former student employee, years later, just before moving from New Jersey to Florida in 1982. The stepson of the Hopkinsville patient for a long time came to my office. Matters were once again lighted up and checked out but with no specific new knowledge or information on the case. When is coincidence coincidence? When is there telepathic leakage or summoning, as the partial examination that which most likely originates within oneself? I guess is Earthenwald's doctrinal compliance, I guess. I don't know what that means. So Earthenwald's doctrinal compliance. The patient's needs dovetails with the psychiatrist's purpose and needs. Oh, okay, I get it. So it's called the doctrinal compliance. Okay. The patient's need dovetails the psychiatrist's purpose and needs. In each instance, the psychic bargain, or could it be reception of the stuff for other complex reasons? For example, the need of a desperately ill patient to seek medical attention, or as in Hopkinsville's case, possibly the relighting of the previous tangential patient contacts by the near stimulation. I'm going to try this again. That was a tough one. Anyways, as in Hopkinsville's case, possibly the relighting of the previous tangential patient contacts by the near simultaneous request to go over audio tapes and written data for a new similar UFO-like creatures harassment case that occurred in Ohio years later. That was a tough one to read. Anyways, Hopkinsville case received negligible scientific attention and would have been totally unnoticed aside from the newspapers and popular books. Dennis Pilichis, I guess that's Pilichis. It's Pilichis. So Dennis Pilichis case, as far as I know, was also largely overlooked. Yet, if the accounts and testimonies are to be accepted, there are some glaring questions which beg for attention and which go largely unanswered. how unfortunate that Gregory Little has tied together and lined up these different type events, and yet in a non-dogmatic and entirely reasonable matter-of-fact style. This is a long. I should actually. Yeah, it's part one. It's okay. I was going to see if I put chapter one. I'm glad I didn't put chapter one because this is a long introduction. But apparently, it's necessary to have this long introduction. So, although admittedly unproven, there is the intriguing UFO hypothesis of the Muslim jinn, as expounded elsewhere by Gordon Creighton, the erudite and learned editor of the prestigious Flying Saucer Review, and frequently mentioned to me, along with the closely related UFO writings of Spanish Salvador Fredio, Fred, okay, I don't know how to pronounce Fredecto, okay, that's it, Fredecto, by the scholar, philosophist, Professor P.M.H. Focus on the jinn and the possible analogies to UFO humanoids, fairies, angels, and other beings, entities, and spirits. In addition to synchronicity, which is closely linked to the UFO problem, there are additional aspects to the personal equation. Using these personal equations that have not received the attention they merit. And I'm going to look up that word. It's my word for today. And I never said it was smart. I said I'm on my journey learning and I'm sharing it with you. So if you think otherwise, you're not alone, because I don't think I am as well. So equation. What does it mean? It's a word I don't hear people use very often. Do I even spelled it right? Let's make sure I spelled it. No, it's with an S, buddy. It's not with a T. Equation. Is it misspelling? Is that the reason why I don't understand it? Leave that out. Or maybe I should do equation. A statement that was
equation.
Equation is a statement that the values of two mathematical expressions are equal. A statement that the values of two mathematical equations are equal. Let's look back at how he's put this, because maybe it's a misspelling. Okay, where are we at with this? There are additional aspects of personal equation that have not received attention in their merits. In addition to synchronicity, which is closely linked to the UFO problem, there's the additional aspects of the personal equation equation that has not received the attention they merit. For example, the Man in Black, MIB, were noted in some popular reports early in the history of ufology, and the subject has been thoroughly probed by John Keel, but not until recent times has it received the serious attention that it deserves. As another example of possibility in the quest to uncover new challenging cases that might support the singular point of view, there is the widespread use of hit and miss hypnosis where people who claimed abduction or close contact are hypnotically regressed, and after recovery of memories of that allegedly happened to them, or after they had relived their traumatic UFO experiences, with which hitherto, in many cases, in the realm of missing time or largely forgotten, the UFO experience, the UFO experience were abducted. Aside from the ethical and medical / legal aspects of using hypnosis, a technique that is not difficult to acquire, in contrast, understanding relationship to the interrelated underlying psychodynamics and physical functioning of the subjects, the scientific value of the reported experiences can often be compromised because there was no plan for long-term care or follow-up. So I'm not quite sure why they put that word in there, but it sure did stumble me. It doesn't take very much to stumble me, anybody who knows me. So, okay, anyways, in addition to the not infrequent bizarre visitations from the Men in Blacks, there are related phenomena of strange mailings and threatenings and telephone calls and unexplained dangerous coincidences. I have definitely had dudes that look like Blackwater, thugs, stooges, come to my front of my house, where I'm sitting right now. It's about 30 feet away from me, where the curb is to the the street, and 35 feet maybe. And they literally got into my garbage and took it all. They literally took all my garbage, threw it in the back of a pickup truck, and drove off. I was looking at them going, why in the hell would you do that? What kind of intel or information are you going to get from a guy like me? Why would you do that? I was thinking maybe it could have been my fellow, I live in a quadplex, it's a daddy place, right? Chase's mom has the house and everything else, right? That's regardless. Just want to throw that in there anyway. It's just a little jab. I think the only person that possibly could have had any connection to this would probably be my buddy upstairs he's in the Air Force Reserves. But I don't know anything that he does. I mean, he's so straight-laced, and he's in the Matrix 100%, so I have no idea. I think it was me, because I'm the one who's been talking about this stuff. And publicly for 6 years. And a lot of times I just hope that I'm just absolutely freaking wrong. That it's about me, that it's my buddy upstairs. But I don't think it is the case. I know it sounds very selfish, but it really, Take a little break. Okay, back from my break. In addition to the not infrequent bizarre visitations from MIBs, this is a repeat of something that I've read already, but I need to take a break, so I had to take a break. So MIBs is Men in Black, by the way. So you see here MIBs, that means the Men in Black. There are related phenomena of strange mailings, threatenings, telephone calls, unexplained, dangerous coincidence. For example, the same Dr. Herbert Hopkins that is discussed by Dr. Little abruptly stopped all his investigations. I ceased to hear from him since the last telephone call to me after our previous productive meeting in Maine. At that time, it was planned that he and his wife would visit my home office in Montclair, New Jersey. When he would make his trip to Upper Montclair to see about the electronic organ. On the way to my office, Dr. Hopkins was nearly killed in a close call with another automobile. Whatever it was so unique. It was so unique an event that he decided then and there not to visit me and not to pursue the researches. Some of the spellings was our problem. This isolated event could easily be tossed off as coincidence, except for the not infrequent reports of similar experiences by others who have been closely involved with UFO file investigations. For example, while during my studies of Stella Lansing of Massachusetts, quote, flying saucer lady, end quote, I also had some bizarre automobile experiences while either driving to Stella's home or when leaving, but always when having pertinent UFO thoughts in my mind. For instance, once when driving north on the Connecticut Turnpike, my automobile was suddenly struck and rocked by something with a loud bang. Yet there was no evidence for the cause of this. On the return drive to New Jersey, God, I have experience. I just had one last week in which two of my hubcaps somehow were magically rotated and put on top of the stem valves where you put air in them, and I had to go to my doctor's, and the air was so flat in my tires, I had to go to the tire man, get new air, or put new air in my tires, and miss my doctor's appointment. By the way, all these entities and spirits that I'm filming are in my neighborhood, in my neighbor's yards. So yeah, I mean, and by the way, I had a what seems to be a orb/UFO incident on the 12th of February as well. If researching this stuff will bring bizarre things to you. But I guess it's all part of the spiritual realm, right? And apparently we're not supposed to know about what's really going on. Who's watching us in this play that we're all in. So anyways, on his way back to New Jersey, a pickup truck suddenly appeared in front of me. It had a refrigerator in the back. I was shocked to suddenly see the refrigerator, although apparently secure with ropes, fly out of the back, bounded and sparkling across the highway directly in front of my path, narrowly missing collision. Coincidence? Synchronicity? Suggestively or telekinetically projected acts by myself because of intense preoccupation focused on concentration in view of the exciting and exhausting research visit of UFO lady Paragnostic Stella. Only through collecting and collating and collating reports over a period of time and from many different sources can some of these questions be answered, if ever at all. The message is, however, that these experiences should not all be dismissed out of hand like the early MIB reports were, but that each and every instance should be studied and analyzed in its own merits. This is entirely similar to the techniques that the psychiatrist uses in his at times tedious and exacting psychotherapy with patients. For some acclaimed national UFO authority to tell me privately about his UFO MIB knowledge while at the same time taking a public stance that is either did not mention or the subject, or when asked about it, he either sidestepped or ridiculed it, is reprehensible and therapeutically dangerous to the already beleaguered contactee abductee who has had his reality testing overtaxed. It's a crazy way of putting things, but I mean it's how do I say it? Sentence structure is tough. That's what it is. But the damage was done, unless, as I sometimes suspect, the authorities was part of the Keystone Cops cover-up disinformation routine and was doing his patriotic duty as he was ordered to do. Who knows? How refreshing to see the claim and equanimity, the calm and let's try this again. How refreshing the calm and equanimity, the calm and equanimity in these pages. For man is the center of matters, but as is pointed out, man is a human being and not a god. For instance, it is easy to be negative and state the obvious, but Edgar Cayce and others like him had their failures and that they made mistakes. However, because of the frequency of alleged spectacular successes and many cases where was no other possible explanation for Cayce's trance communications and therapeutic results, the psychic hypothesis is plausible. It behooves the investigator to organize his data and attempt a formulation. How did Edgar Cayce, Jacques Romano, Dunninger, Crosset, I'm not saying this name, Crozet, and Henry Gross do what they did? What did their venerable prophetic pronouncements and paranormal feats relate to their trance-like states and presumably concomitant psychological changes? How could current and future paragnostics be more profitably studied so that the whole subject might be moved off dead center and progress made by the anticipated correlations with presumed changes in body chemistry, hormones, and other intensities of function? For example, magnetic resonance imagery, MRI, electromagnetic study, positron emission, tomography, and PET. Technologies are available today. Advances are exponentially progressing so that when gifted and highly specialized talents are identified and verified in individuals, these people will be treated like what they really are, national treasures, and not like parlor freaks and Pharisees. Parlor freaks and Pharisees. Okay. I said that completely wrong. Parlor freaks and pariahs. How did I get Pharisees out of that? I tell you why, because I see things that aren't there at times. Although they might not win or merit to esteem or fame of some famous athlete, or popular singer, or TV personality, study of what these psychologically gifted individuals have done, can do, and will do under clinical field tests and laboratory conditions might make what is learned for far more valuable for mankind than all the glittering fluff of the aforementioned stars that bask in the national limelight. For example, the writings of Professor W.H.C. Ten Hoff and Gerard Croset. I'm going to see how to pronounce that, because I always screw things up. It's part of my makeup. That's not what I put in there. How did that happen? Is this what it's constantly going to be with this AI? Crozet. So, okay, Gerard Crozet, the clairvoyant who solved crimes, worked as a healer, and performed precognitive, in quotes, chair tests, in quotes, and to some are far more exciting than some make-believe, quote, who done it, in a quote, mystery books. Miracles did not cease with the Bible. As Dr. Little reports, the Emperor Constantine, Joan of Arc, and other historical figures that in some mysterious ways were influenced and inspired by paranormal happenings have not disappeared from our earth. Many learned studies testify to the effects and interests of psychic matters which have altered the course of history. For example, Adolf Hitler, you can't say the name properly because analytics, supposedly was guided by the evidence of psychic Hannesum, and in the covert part of the war, the Allies used this intelligence and belief to their advantage. At the time, nothing was said about this, and the theme of the psychic warfare was never fully developed in a serious work aside from some isolated popular references. In my work as a psychiatrist, I have soon learned how people are swayed by various possible paranormal events involving others they read about, friends, families, and of course personal experiences. And it is also the rule that these experiences are not talked about publicly, that if they do come up, they are voraciously denied as rumors, distortions, and fabrications. Aside from the obvious entertainment value, I have long been interested in the personal, confidential consultations that famous people have had with alleged psychics, seers, astrologers, and so forth. Discussing interrelated superstitious and psychopathological aspects of these private and usual undisclosed consultations, it can be wondered how this could be in preference to the best available professional and scientific advice if there were not, in many instances, elements of striking success or value. In respect to the paranormal of presidents, kings, queens, and dictators are at heart no different than the average man. They would not resort to these confidential exchanges and readings if they did not meet their psychological needs and if they did not get results. Despite the protestations and clamoring of the professional debunkers, CSICOP, I guess it's SysOpsers, is Committee for the Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, and other possibly reverse religious fanatics. The paranormal and anomalies are still with us, and they will not go away. If anything, the debunkers' negative propaganda and, in some cases, out-and-out fraud, scams, and frame-ups have seemingly produced an unexpected paradoxical effect. They have succeeded in arousing more curiosity and attention than would otherwise have been dreamed possible. Long ago, I learned firsthand from several independent sources how Thomas A. Edison had a lifelong interest in psychic matters. I also learned that Jacques Romano and Joseph Dunninger both performed for Edison on numerous occasions. Romano also was sought out for healing medical advice from Frank Hughes' wife. Is that? Do I say that right? Let's see if I'm saying that right. Before I even, sorry about this. I think. It's Haig.
Haig.
I knew I was saying that right. So, anyways, how did I get Hughes out of that? I have no idea. But that's what happens to me all the time. Where was that with all this? When I butchered that? So Frank Haig's wife, Haig, one of the kingmakers of the Democratic Party, and the boss of bosses, had at his disposal a cadre of handpicked and top-notch medical talent with distinguished professions and seemingly endless funds. Yet Haig's wife sought help from the Paranos healer Jacques Romano rather than turn to her husband's medical experts. I never learned this during Jacques' lifetime, but discovered it when going over his papers after his death. In our times, this point is further illustrated by the famous Israeli psychic Uri Geller, who, despite prolonged and shameless harassment by one fanatical, driven, self-styled expert on psi, has overcome these unfair assaults on his integrity and skills by continuing to perform spectacularly before worldwide audiences and to be sought out by the potentates and their families for private consultations. If Uri was so lacking in psychic ability, how could he have become so wealthy by using his telepathic and clairvoyance talents and discovering rich mineral sites and deposits of oil and gases? When we last spoke on the telephone years ago, Uri told me how he was indebted to his tormentor who gave him attention that he might otherwise have never received, and that he, Uri, then unintentionally, thanks in part to his dysphoric oppressor, had amassed a fortune of $29 million and an estate states in the United States and abroad. From the compact and fascinating narrative of Fatima in Portugal in 1917 to the not over uncommon reports of appearances of the Blessed Mary Virgin BMV throughout history to the recent apparitions of the BMV, the Blessed Mother Virgin, in Zeton, Egypt, currently related activities in Medjugorje, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Medjugorje, Yugoslavia. There are similar and intriguing threads. What is the interplay between the needs of the people individually and collectively, and the appearances? Are the zigzagging suns and the spectacular BMV's materializations projected by a tortured and spiritually starved and suffering humanity that feels itself led down and betrayed by its leaders? Are the people of these possibly telekinetically induced phenomena ravaged, traumatized, and exploited by war and the distorted materialistic interpretations of science and disruption of previous and precarious and equilibrium that had existed between themselves and their God as engraved in holy writ and spoken with hitherto unchallenged authority from the mouths of their high priest? When the tenuous bonds between man and his God are threatened with severance, the needs for support, comfort, and miracles are accentuated. Perhaps then the elusive psychic people power hidden and the unconscious and unknown forces are mobilized and unleashed with a fury, and then the people perhaps being appropriately programmed and tagged for miracles, for that alone can bring about their restitution and salvation, and can produce their collective projections and materializations and apparitions and BMVs and the Blessed Mother Virgin, that is, bleeding statues and wet tears from painted eyes, as well as some UFO events. These are religious events that cut across sectarian boundaries and which offer help as clear as the brilliant moving and darting suns, lights, and luminescent BMVs and other forms of possible psi. Pounds per square inch. The measure or pressure of the imperial system of measurement. Why do he's very scientific, isn't he? Scientific background.
Pronouncing it psi or psi with a silent.
So that's what he's talking about, psi. Anyway, sorry about all that stuff, but it's like you guys obviously have a very strong scientific background and the vocabulary of, actually I have a scientific background, but it's been so long and I haven't used it. I've been just doing other things for the past 20 years or so. I moved on from the disillusionment of being in the fields that I was in. The corruption that I saw within the scientific community was so disturbing I had to leave. Anyways, that's my take on things. For in a way, man perceives directly on an one-to-one individual and collective basis without the intermediation of any interpreters or lawyer priests. Will the Pope, as was promised, ever release the message that the Blessed Mother Virgin imparted to the three children in Fatima? Why hasn't the Pope released the message, and what are the contents of the message? I think I heard something about they did, and it was half-assed of recent, since in the past 30 years. I thought it happened recently, maybe in the past decade, but I don't remember. My recollection, it wasn't that important to me when I heard it at the time. To be curious about these inexplicable happenings should drive one to learn all that he can about them. In this quest, possible telepathic, synchronistic factors might become involved. For a personal example, when the apparition of the Blessed Mother Virgin in Zeton received attention, Dennis Pilicus of Ohio sent me his study on it. Pilicus in 1977, and I was naturally curious. Shortly afterwards, I had an Egyptian Coptic patient and the brother-in-law of a physician for consultation. The patient and his engineer sister both had witnessed the apparition early in its occurrences on several occasions. They fully confirmed what thousands had seen, and which was widely reported. However, despite their scientific training, they would not discuss the matter any further. On my own unexpected single frame of mind. Got a phone.